Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is your host, Mr. DevOps, and welcome to 60 Days of DevOps with Vikash series. And today is the day 7 where we are going to continue with the AWS services need to know as a DevOps engineer part 2. Okay, in which we will have the projects included with regard of the services which we are going to see. Okay, so, before coming into this, you will be thinking, and you should follow, or I should highly recommend what are all the prerequisites you need to know in order to get started with the day 7, guys. So, please, you have to watch videos from day 1 to day 6, okay? And mostly, I will tell you, watch the day 6, okay? At least watch the day 6 if you don't have the patience, all right? And you can get this link into from the video description, okay? And if you are thinking about the what are the topics and all which we are going to discuss today, I always say go ahead and check the video description. Okay, into the video description I mention each and everything and each and every topic which we are going to discuss into this project. All right, so as per our best practices, if you are following me from day 1, what we do, we just have a quick revision of the topics we did in previous days, like for 6 days what are the things we have seen. So let's have a quick walkthrough of those all things. So in the day 6 we have seen, we have started the topic what are all the essential services we should know as a DevOps engineer. Okay, we have seen theories as well as the real-time implementation as well as the scenario. Okay, so in this particular series we have developed three project. Okay, we have developed a three real-time project into the same sixth day 6 of video. Okay, and apart from that we have seen the learning curve. Okay, so in that particular video we have covered the AWS essential services. Okay, like those are the building block. Basically we have seen reason availability zone, VPCs, EC2, S3 and IAM roles. We have discussed everything about these all topics, why should we know and what are its important and how a DevOps engineer is going to deal with these all AWS services. So these all things we have already seen. You can see here. It was a very interesting, uh, you know, interesting day and very important day for you if you are choosing any of the particular cloud in order to get started. So these three projects we have done. Okay, so I'm heading toward the next day part 2. So what we will see today, let me draw the uh, learning path again. Okay, so that it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, what are all the things which we are going to see today. Okay, so let's get started. So one more request, in case you haven't subscribed my channel, please do subscribe and press the bell icon so that you will get notified whenever I will put a new video. All right, so let's get started. Let's start with the learning curve first. This is going to be the learning path. Okay, what are all the things we will see into it? We will see essentials, essential AWS services, which we have already discussed into day 6 with project. Now today we will see CICD, AWS tools. As a DevOps engineer, what are the CICD tools we should know in AWS? We will see infrastructure services of AWS, and we will see security perspective, security perspective or security services in AWS. And the fifth thing we will see monitoring services provided by AWS. Okay, so these are the five things. So today we will go ahead with the CI/CD thing. Okay, and based on that, I have a plan of create the real-time implementation to show you the use cases. So let me start with the CI/CD today. Okay, why CI/CD is important? Okay, so in this we will talk about the key services on which, as a DevOps engineer, you will be spending a lot of your time. Okay, so if you don't know what does this CI means, so CI basically means continuous integration. Okay, and CD means continuous deployment. Okay, so this is the full form of CI/CD. So you will be thinking, so my what will be my role as a DevOps engineer? Okay, so your role as a DevOps engineer will be, to enable what, seamless deployment or development of application seamless means you will be totally automating the process of deploying a application. So you have to take care of each and everything for the seamless deployment. So based on that only, we are going to see what are all the tools, AWS services which provide us, right? So this is the first thing. And so in order to facilitate that, AWS provides a bunch of services that makes this process possible. Okay, so coming to this, the first service will be your code commit, guys. So I will frame it in a storyline, so it will be very easy for you to understand. Okay, you will not never forget. I will guarantee. Okay, so first service is code commit. Okay, so what is this? This service is, very similar to Git or GitHub concept, if you are aware of. This is similar to Git. Okay, what it is, what is a GitHub? GitHub is a source code repository. GitHub provide a source code repository, right? It's a kind of central repository. Okay, it doesn't provide you GitHub. Okay, but it is it is hosted within AWS. Okay, a kind of GitHub repository for source code management, which is hosted into AWS. Hope you're noting these all points. Okay, so here you can create any number of Git repo. You can create any number of Git repo, and along with that, you can enable or you can control those repository as well. Control the repository as well. You can create n number of Git repository, and you will be able to control those repository as well. So what do you mean by control here? Control means, like a selected group of developer or people can access your repository. Okay, hope you understood. Now you have stored the source code, right? Now you have stored the source code, and now you want to deploy a new change, or you have committed a new change which you want to deploy. Okay, so into AWS code commit, you have some code, right, already, and you have done some new commit, the same we did and do in Git, right? You have first time implemented login functionality, and for the next time you have implemented registration functionality. Then suppose login functionality code is already you have kept into AWS code commit. Okay, and which is live in the sense live means it is running on the production, suppose. And next day you have implemented code for registration, you have done the new commit to the code commit. Okay, so what do you want here? Okay, you should you want to one a new change means you want to deploy this new change to the production as well, right? Along with the login functionality, you want to deploy this registration functionality also to the production environment. So in order to do that, you have to rebuild the software application. Okay, so okay, maybe you will be getting confused. Let me tell you how we can do that. Okay, suppose someone wrote a Java application. It is a Java code, guys, simple. Don't think about what the application do. Okay, now you want to run this software onto a EC2. Okay, this is my EC2. I want to run this Java application onto EC2. Is it possible I can directly run this software? You can't run this software directly onto a EC2 machine in order to make it a web server, like we have seen in the day 6, right? How we can make a web server. Okay, you will, if you will copy directly your code, it is not going to work. Okay, so for that, what we do basically in between, we build the code. There are so many things using which you can build that code, which one of the popular is Maven. Okay, Maven build your Java code, provide you tar file, sorry, jar file. Okay, and this jar file you need to copy at a certain location in EC2, then only your web server will come up with your services like login and registration. So here you can see you are not directly deploying your code to the EC2, but you have built the code, compiled the code using Maven, and you have received the jar file. And the jar file I have deployed onto a EC2. Okay, this way I can access the application. So let me clear it again. So now in the same way what I told, in the same way, firstly login was already deployed to the production. Now you want to deploy a new change. You have committed a new change to the code commit, and that new change you want to deploy to the production or anything, guys, any server. Okay, so we need to rebuild this. We seen, right, ambient build here, Maven was building. So we need to rebuild the code, right, so that we will get the latest changes, latest jar file, latest jar file which will contain login plus registration. Okay, and that then once we will compile that, we will get the jar file. A jar file is nothing but a artifact. Okay, and this artifact will contain a new version in the sense, again and again I'm saying, login plus registration. Earlier in old version, what was the functionality available? Just login. Okay, this is just an example, guys, don't take it seriously. Okay, login plus registration. Now here, in order to build the code, there is a service called code build. AWS have this service. Okay, using code build you can do the same thing. Okay, it will help you to do the same thing whatever we have saw up, the same thing you are going to achieve using this. Hope you are able to correlate. First you have committed your code to the repository, that is AWS code commit. Now you want to build the code, right, using code build, and you will get a kind of artifact, and that artifact you will deploy somewhere. Okay, so let's talk more about code build. So using this, using this you can connect to code commit or any external source code management repo. Okay, what else I can, it will build our, mainly build our source code. We will see these all things in our real-time project. Okay, just try to grab this concept first, don't be in a hurry buddy. Okay, what else it does, it runs different unit test or any kind of test. Okay, runs different unit tests on your code. The build you are doing using code commit, that will be considered as a successful build if it goes through all the checks and balances and passes the unit test cases. Okay, so This was all about code build, and that is enough to know. Okay, now we have seen code commit. So like using that we have stored our code into source code management, right? Like currently where do we stand? We have a code commit, we have stored our source code here. Then what happened? We have built the code using, just try to correlate guys, code build. Using this code build we have generated the artifacts. Okay, now how do you deploy this infrastructure or artifact? There should be some medium that will help you to deploy this artifact on the server, on the production, or EKS or ECS. There should be some medium. Okay, so this can be done using a new service that is called code deploy. Now code deploy comes in picture. Okay, so let's highlight this. What does it do? It allows to deploy or build artifact or software application to the wide variety of different compute infrastructure. Okay, so again I'm saying it does what? It allows you to build, sorry, it allows you to deploy your build artifact from where you got from code build, right? So once you have got the build artifact, so code deploy will help you to deploy your build artifact on wide variety of AWS in compute infrastructure. Like you can deploy those things into EC2, you can deploy onto Lambda function, you can deploy it to ECS. Okay, that we will see into that we are going to see in few moment, right? So on these things code deploy will help you to deploy guys. So these three services are working on similar kind of issue, correct? So there is one more service which will bind these three services all together so that you can easily automate. Okay, so what will happen? Let me draw the diagram for you first in order to explain it in a good way. Code commit, code build, code deploy. Okay, so now whenever you commit a new change, like you do in GitHub, right? Whenever you commit a new change to the code commit, it will automatically detect the new change. Okay, and it will automatically start building your source code. So these all things are going to possible. Okay, these all things are going to possible using the tool that is called code pipeline. Okay, okay, so whenever you are committing a new change, code commit will detect it and it will automatically start building your source code. Once it will build your source code, it will automatically deploy your source code to many different environments. Okay, like in a typical company you may have test environment followed by a production environment, right, in which your traffic is being served by the customer. So this is the environment where actual traffic from the real customer is coming. Okay, so in order to facilitate this all automated thing, you have a service called code pipeline. Okay, so let's dig into this particular service code pipeline. What are the what it does, so it allows you to create pipeline, allows to create pipelines. It is a kind of Jenkins, right, in which you can define the sequence of steps you can define here, where source code run through before production. What mainly you will be doing, you will be deploying to the test environment, right? So think of a scenario. Okay, here you create a pipeline in which you will build the source code first. Okay, once you have built the source code, you have deployed to the test environment, right? And now you will run some test cases. You will run like integration testing and integration testing, unit testing. And once this all testing will be performed, you will wait for a particular period of time so that the testing could be finished. Okay, once your testing and all will be finished, and like you are doing currently those all things into testing environment, once you're okay with the testing environment, you are ready with the checks and balances, all are good. Now finally you will deploy the code to the production. So like this the setup works. So code pipeline does what? Code pipeline basically glues all these services together to create a very effective way to deploy your application rapidly, and it also makes sure it works correctly. Okay, so that's it for CI/CD part. Now we will move ahead. Now I will talk about the infrastructure side. Okay, so let's take this. CI/CD is done. Now we will check on infrastructure side. What are the services as a DevOps engineer we should know? Infrastructure. So there are a couple of services that AWS provides as an infrastructure. I will start firstly with the compute infrastructure. Okay, let me build the mind map for you, where we will talk about EKS, where we will talk about ECS, we will talk about Lambda. Okay, mainly these are the services, and more than that we are going to see. So let me frame the storyline for you so that you can understand. Okay, so coming to compute, as a DevOps engineer, you need to be aware about different type of compute infrastructure, and also how to create and deploy any other AWS infrastructure. So one of the best example is we have already saw a proper project in this into day 6, that is EC2. EC2 is nothing but a physical virtual server, right? Where you host your application. Okay, and if you are from Docker background, you must be aware of ECS and EKS. If you are not, that is also not a issue. Okay, so what do you mean by ECS? ECS stand for Elastic Container Service. Okay, where Elastic Container Service, right? And EKS stand for Elastic Kubernetes Service. Okay, so Elastic Kubernetes Service is nothing but it is a managed AWS service which hosts our Kubernetes applications. You can host your Kubernetes application on EKS or Elastic Kubernetes Service. Okay, and coming to Elastic Container Service, you can say this is a kind of homegrown or AWS native service. Okay, which will do what? Which will allow you to deploy your services, or deploy your, like, it will help you to deploy your services deploy your tasks, okay, that run based on Docker container. So in simple word, it will allow you to deploy services or deploy tasks that runs based on the Docker containers. Okay, so full-fledged software can be created using either of these two options, either by EKS or ECS. Using this, you can completely run your application end to end using this only. So coming to the third, coming to the uh, coming to the third uh, compute infrastructure tool, that is your AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda. So it is very popular. It is very popular and in demand service, you can say. Okay, whenever you are applying for any DevOps engineer position, nowadays they are mainly focusing on this AWS Lambda service. Okay, and it uses basically a slight uh, different approach. And what is the different approach? Okay, so when you don't want to worry about the infrastructure to deploy your application, okay, so again think of a scenario. I want to deploy my static application on a EC2. How easy it is to deploy, right? You have to create EC2 instances, you have to install the software and the packages, and then you have to run the application, right? You have to copy the code and well and everything. So to do these all things, you need to create a server. Okay, and that is little bit time consuming, it you can say. Okay, it is fine for like for simple code, that is fine. But when you go for a higher environment, okay, where you would be needing high throughput of computer, okay, so when you don't want to worry about the infrastructure to deploy your application, Lambda will handle the infrastructure for you. Lambda will provide you the base means, suppose there is certain EC2 instances running from AWS side, they will provide you, take this, run your code. Okay, and if you're still not clear, let's discuss a scenario. Okay, how does this Lambda work? So this is a user. He done what? He has written some code. Okay, any language. Once he has written some code, what he has done, he has went to AWS Lambda. Okay, and he has wrapped up his code into Lambda function. Okay, once he has wrapped up this function to the Lambda function and he has triggered the Lambda, now AWS behind the scene will take the responsibility for finding the required infrastructure to run your code. Okay, like your code maybe need 500 TB, 600 TB of storage and the memory capacity. It is not possible, but think of that scenario. Like if you need that kind of throughput in order to run your code, so you are not sure what type of server I should use, right? So in that case, you can make use of Lambda. AWS will provide you whatever how much memories and CPU are required. You don't have to worry about that, forget about that, just run the code. AWS will take care of this. Okay, and Lambda also handles automatic scaling. Automatic scaling, what do you mean by this? Just now I have discussed, right? To run your code, they will start with some kind of, suppose T2 they have started with T2 medium. The code still required more greater size, then it will do what? T3 medium, and it will goes on. Okay, so it is automatically scaling as well, right? So this is very effective. Okay, and throughput workload. And also it help you, Lambda help you to run the ad hoc jobs. Ad hoc jobs are a simple job. Like if you are from an Ansible background, you would be knowing about that. Ad hoc are just a simple command job or one time job, you can say. So like suppose there is a task you want to run once in a while, you can say, or some kind of automation task. Okay, automation task. So what else we can do with Lambda? So you can do what? Suppose there is one scenario, you want to take the DB snapshot. When? At the middle of night, when you are not awake. What you will do, you will write a lambda function to do this job for you. Okay, so this is very common, very common DevOps use case, right? DevOps task. Another thing what you can do, you can integrate your lambda with your CloudWatch. Okay, so whenever you want to trigger any kind of event, lambda will do that for you. Okay, you don't need to worry about that. Even if you want to take the snapshot of your databases using lambda function. Okay, okay, I have already discussed that, so that also you can do. So that's it in the terms of compute as an infrastructure. Now I will talk about actually create and manage our infrastructure. Okay, so how we can create and manage our infrastructure. So this is very very important. Whatever I'm saying you, that is important. Okay, so before getting into this topic, I will tell you about something about history. Okay, in the past, as a DevOps engineer, you have to go to the AWS console, click around the things just to create some EC2 instances or any services you want to launch, right? Now, in that case only, if you want to create multiple copies of the similar resources, I want to create one. Creating one EC2 instances manually is okay, but if I want to create 100 of EC2 instances with same configurations, so in previous days this was the situation, guys. Okay, so that is very very hard situation, right? So one way is using AWS CLI. It was already there, right? You can do it, right? It is little bit quicker. Instead of doing manually, this AWS CLI way is little bit quicker, but this is not great, right? 100 of services using AWS CLI. So what is the present scenario? How we are dealing with this large number of infra creation? There should be something, right? So now we don't create anything manual. It is the best kind of best practice, you can say. Okay, no any manual creation of resources. Okay, so for that what we do, we use infrastructure as a code. Okay, or the third thing, what we do in the current real time scenario, like we create infrastructure using coding or programming language. So this is the case present scenario right now. We don't do manual creation. You can do it for your testing purpose, but for best practice you shouldn't do it. Okay, you should take help of infrastructure as a code, or you can make use of coding or programming languages. So we will talk about it. So there are a couple of ways to do this in AWS. Okay, for infrastructure as a code management, there are a couple of services. One of them is very very popular tool, cloud formation. Cloud formation. So what cloud formation does? Okay, so this is one of the first attempt of AWS to do infrastructure as a code of AWS to achieve what? Infrastructure as a code, guys. Okay, so how does it work basically? How does it work? So steps are, you define you define a template. You define a template either in JSON or YAML format. Okay, then you do what? In the template only, in the template only, what you do, you define all the list of resources you want to create. Okay, then again what you do, you go to aws console aws console, check for the cloud formation, search for the cloud formation, and in the cloud formation you will have something called stack. Okay, so you will create a stack and you will upload your JSON or YAML format file, no other format. Okay, now what will happen once you will upload this file? It will validate and it will create automatically all the listed resources which you have listed into this YAML or JSON file. So isn't it the really effective way to create infrastructure? Correct. So let me show you quickly. I do not have any YAML or some text file, but I will show you how we can make use of it. Okay. So when you will go to this AWS console, click for cloud formations. You can search here. So here you can see here these are the certain option you are having. You can click on create stack, and here if your template is ready, you can choose it. Either if you are storing your code into AWS S3 URL, you have to put the URI of the file. Okay, like what is the URI of the file? If you will go to this, suppose this is my YAML file. Suppose this is the URI, you have to copy and paste here. If you are storing into S3, if you want to upload the code file from your local, you can. If your template is ready, right, you are writing the code in your local VS Code or any editor, notepad, something, you can upload by clicking on this. Okay, your YAML file. Okay, once you will upload it, it will show you like this. Okay, and once you will click on next, so it is trying to validate like it is not a YAML format, right? So this is the case. So suppose I don't have the template ready, I can click on this, use a simple template, and here you can choose simple template any simple template. You can click on any of them like WordPress blog. Next, you can put and fill these all details. Okay, it is going to create a kind of infrastructure for you. Okay, this is going to create a lamp stake application for you that I am planning to show you in one of the project. Okay, so like this we make use of cloud formation template. Once you will upload your file, it will, it will provide you this kind of functionality where you have to pass on this value and it will create your list of resources. Either it is 100 of resources or 1,000 of resources, it will take care of that. Okay, so but now there is much way better way in the modern time to create infrastructure. Okay, and also there are different, also it is present into AWS itself. Okay, and you know what that service is called? That service is called development kit cloud development kit. So this is a very modern way to write the infrastructure. So in short form, you have heard sometime like CDK, right? And this is completely different than CFT. Okay, so what happens when you use cloud from CDK? Okay, using this, what you can do, it allows you to write actual code to create infrastructure. Actual code, right? You have written hello world, you have written for each loop, correct? So like this, you can write actual code to create the infrastructure. Okay, since you are using the code, you can use many different constructs. What do you mean by constructs? You can use for loop, you can use while loop. Okay, and etc, right? This makes your life very easy when you will get hands on these all things to create the infrastructure, right? This will help you a lot. Okay, so you can easily, using this CDK, you can easily define a dynamic code. Okay, and this is very high in demand. As I said, for Lambda, this is also one of the tool which is high in demand. So alternatively, like many companies uses different tool to manage the infrastructure, right? And one of them is Terraform. Also, maybe you have heard of it, or you are watching my videos. You are already a subscriber of my channel. You have already implemented the Terraform project, complete Terraform project. So it is basically built by HashiCorp. Okay, and it is not native to AWS. Okay, so it is not native to AWS and works it, the main thing about Terraform is it works for multi-cloud. Okay, you can write the similar template for different environment, like for AWS, for GCP, for Azure. You can use the Terraform template, but if you are using CloudFormation, you can't use the same CloudFormation for Azure. That is not going to work there. Okay, so Terraform is preferable, like it will help those type of organization that works on multi-cloud environment or multi-cloud provider. Okay, so typically, you can use CloudFormation plus CDK, or you can use Terraform as well. So these were the keys. So these were the key services of infrastructure as a code. Now let's move into security. Okay. So now we are done with this infrastructure. Now we are heading toward the security. So security is very important in cloud, since you are hosting everything on the cloud, not in the on-premise. On-premise in the sense your local system, you can say, or you are running a set of systems on which you are running your application, your hardware, your software, your Windows image, your crack keys, not crack keys, your official Windows license. Okay, so so that is called your on-premise on which your application is running. So now what is happening? You are running your application to the cloud, right? It is not on your on premise anymore. So you need to make it more secure. So in order to make it more secure, you have to secure the resources very gently, right? And you don't want to allow some bad actor, right, to access your infrastructure or do bad with your infrastructure. Okay, so how can we protect? Do AWS provide these kind of services using that I can secure my infrastructure? Okay, so I am going to list it one by one. Okay, so first way is, before that let me draw the mind map for you. Coming to security, you should be able to assume that. Coming to security, what are all the various services AWS provide? First is IAM role with policies. This is first. Second is your VPC security group, and third is going to be your cloud trail. Okay, so these are the very important services as coming to security. So let's try to know, explore one by one about these all services. Actually, how does it help us, right? How does it help? Okay, so coming to IAM, it is the easiest way, it is the easiest way to secure our infrastructure using IAM with policies. Okay, so what you can do, you can attach a user or infrastructure. This IAM role, you can attach a user or infrastructure, like we have seen for EC2. We have allowed EC2 to access only S3, right? In the same way, you can create a user and you can allow it just to access the EC2. You can provide it read access, delete access, or any access. In that way, you are limiting this user to you use very few resources. So that is possible using IAM role only. So that is why I have shown you how to do it into the day 6 of video, right? So once we will attach this IAM role to the user or infrastructure, what will happen? So who doesn't have access to our infrastructure, they won't be able to access the infrastructure. Okay, then the user which is authorized and authenticated, only they would be able to perform their certain job, right? Correct. And this is a very effective tool to manage who will access what. Okay, it basically checks who will, it basically allows who will access what, who, and what. Apart from that, a particular service or resource. So using IAM role, you can control which user can access particular resource or service. Okay, what service or what resource. Okay, just try to understand this, or just go back and try to decode this again. Okay, another we are done with the IAM role. So basically, let me tell you again the scenario which we have discussed in the sixth video. Suppose this is the EC2. Okay, and this is running application. Okay, and this application want to access a S3 bucket to upload or anything, upload, download, update, or any kind of thing. It want to connect with the S3 bucket. Okay, so how can we authorize this EC2? How can we provide power to the EC2 so that it can access this particular S3 bucket? So what we will do, we will create a IAM role. In IAM role, we will attach policy. In the specific policy, you can mention, suppose this bucket name is Mr. DevOps. You can mention this IAM role can access a particular buckets only. See how you are limiting the access. Okay, and once you have created this IAM role with policy, and that IAM role with policy you will attach with the VPC. So this we have seen into the sixth day of lecture one of the project. Okay, now once this is done, there is another service that is called VPC security group. So coming to the security perspective, let's talk about that. VPC security group. So this is something it is a kind of great tool of it works on networking level. Okay, so this is a kind of, you can say, entity that can be attached to any infrastructure. Okay, like your EC2, you can say. Okay, so what it does, it tells AWS that only a particular group of another infrastructure are allowed to interact with the particular piece of infrastructure. Okay, so I'm repeating it again. It is a kind of entity that can be attached to infrastructure, which says AWS, hey AWS, only a particular group of infrastructure are allowed to interact with this piece of infrastructure. Okay, so if you didn't understood, let me explain by a scenario. Okay, suppose you have created a VPC in which you have your database. Okay, so you have hosted a database inside a VPC. Okay, now you will attach a security group. Okay, now who can access this database and how? Okay, so you can have a couple of instances attached to the same or different security group, and this security group will allow to previous security group. Suppose in this security group, you suppose there is some EC2 instances. This is very important concept, guys. This is EC2 instances. If they are using common security group or uncommon also, that is also fine. Okay, if they are using common security group, and this security group you will allow into this security group. Okay, once you will allow, there is option like into the inbound only, you can select the security group. You can allow the security group, you have to pass the security group ID. Once you will allow the security group, this security group ID which is in use by these particular instances, then these particular instances will be able to access the databases. Okay, suppose here in instances you have application, and here you have DB. So only these particular instances will be able to access your databases. Why? Because you have allowed the security group of these three EC2 instances into the database EC2 instance. Okay, so or you can do what, either it is going to work for your lambda function, or you can create a ECS Docker container. For those all, you this is going to happen, right? Now we are moving ahead. CloudTrail. This is the third service. This is the third service for AWS. Coming to AWS security, what it does, it allows you to monitor and record account. So what it monitor and what does it record? It record activities across your infrastructure. You have your complete AWS console things and activities are going on. This is going to uh, monitor those all such kind of thing. Okay, so it basically, it acts, uh, it answers such questions in simple ways. Try to think. Answers what it answers: who accessed something, okay, what did they access in my AWS account. I'm talking about that. And when did they access? Suppose any of your employee has left the company, he has still access of the AWS console, and he has tried to, after leaving the company, he has tried to do something wrong with the infrastructure, right? He is trying to delete some of the thing. So where I can track that, in CrowdTrail, it is going to answer you he who has accessed what and when did they have access. Okay. Also, CloudTrail helps you. Also, it helps you in auditing and keep record keeping and record keeping. What does this mean? So basically, it allows you to check who is in and who is accessing your resources. The same thing. The same thing. Okay. And also, either any hacker or any abuser who is interacting with your services. Okay, now we would be able to track it. What are the action they are taking? Any hacker or abuser which is trying to do something wrong with the infrastructure, we would be very easily able to track it. Okay, so these are the many, there are many other AWS services out there, but these are the important services. Coming to the security perspective, you should know. So next section we are going to talk about, that is monitoring. Okay, that is monitoring. So in our learning path, we are clear with the security, right? We are left with the last topic, that is monitoring. So let me draw the mind map for you. What are the things we will see in monitoring? And what are our job as a DevOps engineer in monitoring, and how does AWS help us? Okay, so if you're talking about monitoring, we will talk about CloudWatch. We will talk about matrices. We will talk about alarms. We will talk about logs, and we will talk about dashboards. Okay, so this is the kind of mind map you have to remember. In as a DevOps engineer, these are the things you should be aware of as I'm talking about the monitoring perspective. Okay, so it is very important as a DevOps engineer to know, like, our services are acting ordinarily or not. Either it is working in an ordinary way or in ordinary way. Also, you should be able to track your application doing things that they shouldn't be doing. If they started doing malfunctioning, that also you should be able to have a track of, right? So how do we monitor these application? Okay, how do we monitor these applications? So AWS have a service, CloudWatch. CloudWatch. So, you know, this is a only service that AWS dedicates to for monitoring. Okay, and it is a kind of very large services which have its different component. Okay, and those different component does different kind of things. Okay, so this is all about the CloudWatch, guys. Okay, and we will talk about more in the upcoming lectures. Okay, so key concept as a DevOps engineer is you should know like what is metrics. Matrices. What is matrices? So it is a piece of information about a particular service over a period of time. Okay, so matrices is something, this is a piece of information of a particular service over a period of time. Example EC2. So we have hosted application on EC2. Now what could be the critical matrices we should monitor as a DevOps engineer or developer? So you are running application on the EC2. So what's your job? Okay, in as coming to the monitoring part as a DevOps engineer. So first thing can be CPU utilization. CPU utilization. So if CPU utilization goes very high, okay, that's a problem for us. Correct. So what else we would be knowing as a DevOps engineer? Okay, by keeping in mind all the different AWS services, we have different AWS matrices as well. Okay, for different AWS services, you will have different matrices. Okay, so you should be able to understand different relevant matrices in the terms of what we are going to monitor. Okay, and let me put down some point for you. You should track those matrices. Okay, what else you should be able to do as a DevOps engineer in monitoring? How can you we how to find it within CloudWatch, that matrices, find how to find the particular matrices for a particular service in CloudWatch, how we can grip those matrices over a period of time. Okay, some system, some application was malfunctioning at 11 to 12 p.m. suppose. So we would be able to grab the matrices between these time. Okay, matrices between these period of time, so that we can go thoroughly actually what was the real cause of that. Is it going to happen in the future also the same thing? Okay, and also how to bucketize them. So the number of matrices you have, that is a kind of file, right, that you are going to store into some bucket. Like mainly we store in the S3 buckets and all, where data analytics team can make use of that, or any other can do make use of that. So you should know how we can bucketize those matrices as well. And what is matrices? As I told, this is a piece of information of a particular service over a period of time. Okay, and what is the fifth thing you should know? One more example is like you could be able to interpret the you can be able to interpret the result out of a matrix in form of graph. You can create graphs as well for the matrices. Now coming to the second thing, as coming to monitoring, that is called alarm. ALARM. We have seen the CloudWatch, we have seen the matrices, we are going to see the alarms now. So what do you mean by alarm here? Okay, so if your matrices, what we seen above, if matrices tell you about the information of application, then alarm will tell you or notify you about about when the things are not going well. In that case, alarm is going to help you when the things are not going well. So how we can use it? How to use this alarm? Okay, so what you can do, you can attach the alarm with a particular matrices. Okay, and can be fired like this whenever the matrix alarm you have, and when it will get fired, when it will come in action, Whenever after a period of time, if something wrong is happening that shouldn't be happening, in that case alarm will going to notify you. So let's understand this by a simple scenario again. Okay, so suppose one case will be your CPU utilization. We already talked about this. If it goes greater than 90% for 15 minutes, okay, so it indicates that something wrong is happening with my application. Okay, so in that case maybe you need to auto scale, add more servers, add additional servers so that you can distribute the load, right? Because it is 90%, so it will, when you will add more server, it will distribute the loads for with another server as well. Okay, what else a scenario will be for alarm may come in action. We can set the alarm when some bad actor or hacker running some script against our server. Maybe it can be malicious, right? They would be running some script to harm our infrastructure. In that case, alarm do what? Alarm will just notify you to be proactive in order to detect what things are not going well. Okay, you can associate a action against with the alarm also. Okay, alarm will just notify you, but still you have the capability, AWS provide you capability to, you can put a action, you can bind the action with the particular alarm. Like alarm can trigger you an email, alarm can text message you if something is not going well, right? So this is how alarm help you. Now coming to the logs part. Coming to the logs part, then we will see the dashboard. Okay, so what do you mean by log, guys? What do you mean by log here? Okay, so it contains critical information. Okay, it contains critical information like what application is doing. It contains critical information what a application is doing, either the application giving exception or any debug information. If you want to get, using that you would be able to troubleshoot, so using logs you will get those all things. Okay, also along with that, log will help you what the application doing at particular amount of time, what application was doing at particular amount of time. Correct. If you want to find log, okay, or search log, if you want to like there will be very high amount of log whenever the time will pass. So whenever you will have, and in that particular log you want to find or search through logs for a particular log, in that case there is a service called CloudWatch Insight. So this is a very useful tool for firing SQL type queries to filter the log. Here a kind of SQL queries type you can fire the log so that it will be very easy to filter out a particular log. Okay, so last one services is remaining in the terms of monitoring, that is called dashboard. Okay, so dashboard. So as a DevOps engineer, your responsibility is to make sure your application is running continuously. So how do we know that if all application is running well? Okay, so what you can do, you can create a dashboard. So once you will create a dashboard, what are all the features you will get? It is going to be one stop solution for you in the terms of, like you can create this dashboard where you can create this dashboard into CloudWatch itself. Okay, and you can add different type of matrices to your dashboard. Matrices to dashboard, you can add different type of matrices to the dashboard. As we have seen in the matrices section, matrices will be different for different services. So in that way you would be able to add different kind of matrices to the dashboard. Okay, you can add different alarms as well. You can add different alarms as well, and you can add different logs also. Okay, so dashboard will tell you at a very quick glance. What it will tell you at a very quick glance, right? Is my services is running correctly? If it is not, then should have an access to all those responsible key metrics. Okay, if my application is not running correctly, so by looking at the desktop only, sorry, the dashboard only, we would be able to know, we would be able to know what is the responsible matrices for this. Okay, also on dashboard you would be able to know, by looking at the dashboard only, you will come at a conclusion about any cause or problem you are facing with your application. So this is how you have to create the dashboard. So like this, we are done with the particular AWS services we should know about. Okay, I will try to come up with a project into the day 8 for the services which I have talked about here, like into the CICD or infrastructure, because everything I would not be covering, right? Because there is a separate, there is going to be separate session for that. Okay, but I will try to bring something for the CI/CD part, right? So this was all about the AWS services you need to know as a DevOps engineer. Okay, so if you really liked my video, please do like, comment, and subscribe, and share with your friends, please, please. And that is what helped me to do such things more for you. You can share these projects on LinkedIn, right? And you can tag me as well. Thank you so much.